The car slowed as it approached the rusted gate, its tires crunching softly against gravel that hadn't been disturbed in years. Adrian Kane didn't need a sign to tell him he had arrived. The sight alone was enough. The house stood there, old and tired, exactly the way it had been etched into his memory, yet somehow smaller, less threatening, less powerful. He tightened his jaw, fingers gripping the steering wheel, as if letting go would pull him back into the past he had spent a lifetime running from. This place was supposed to be gone already, reduced to rubble, erased. That was the plan. Adrian stepped out of the car, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten years. The walls were cracked, the paint peeling like skin burned too many times by the sun. This house had watched him grow. It had watched him suffer. And today it would finally disappear. He adjusted his tailored coat, expensive fabric clashing with the poverty of the environment, and walked forward with the confidence of a man who owned cities, companies, and governments that bent quietly in his direction. Yet his steps slowed as he reached the porch. The wooden boards creaked beneath his feet, and for a moment Adrian Kane was no longer a billionaire. He was a boy again, a boy who had sat on those same steps with bare feet and empty pockets, dreaming of escape. He exhaled sharply and reached for the door. It opened before he could touch it. Selena Hart stood there, startled, her eyes wide as if she hadn't expected anyone. For a brief second, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable, broken only by the distant chirping of birds. She was not what Adrian had imagined. Not a squatter, not a caretaker in uniform, not someone hardened by desperation. She looked ordinary, soft. There was something calm in the way she stood, something unguarded, as though life had not yet taught her how cruel it could be. "Can I help you?" Selena asked finally, her voice steady but cautious. Adrian stared at her longer than necessary, irritation flickering across his face. "Who are you?" His tone was clipped, controlled. "And why are you in my house?" Her brows furrowed. "Your house?" "Yes," he replied coldly. "This property belongs to me." She hesitated, then stepped aside slightly, as if inviting him in without truly offering permission. "You should come inside. It's complicated." Complicated. Adrian hated that word. He walked past her, the familiar smell of dust and old wood hitting him like a wave. Memories surged without warning. The narrow hallway, the uneven floor, the faded wallpaper his mother once tried to scrub clean. Everything was still here, preserved, mocking him. "You shouldn't be here," Adrian said flatly. "This house is scheduled for demolition." Her breath caught. He noticed it immediately. "Demolition?" Selena echoed, disbelief lacing her voice. "Yes," he said. "In 3 days." Selena swallowed hard, her gaze drifting to the walls as if they could hear him. "You can't do that." His lips curved into a humorless smile. "Watch me." She turned to face him fully, anger flickering behind her eyes. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," he snapped. "This house means nothing. It's a structure. Old. Worthless." Her hands clenched at her sides. "That's not true." Adrian laughed softly, but there was no warmth in it. "Don't get emotional about bricks and wood. Pack your things. You have 72 hours. Selena stared at him, stunned. "I live here." "That's unfortunate," he replied. "But not my problem." For a moment, she looked like she might cry. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, something resolute settling into her posture. "You won't demolish this house." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" "Because," Selena said quietly, "this house saved my life." Something in her tone made him pause, just for a second. He turned away before she could say more, unwilling to let curiosity take root. Curiosity had always been dangerous. It softened edges, made people weak. "I don't care about your story," he said. "Be gone when I return." He left as abruptly as he had arrived, the door closing behind him with a hollow thud. As he stepped back into the sunlight, his chest felt tighter than before. He told himself it was irritation. Nothing more. Yet as he drove away, Selena's face lingered in his mind longer than he wanted to admit. That night, sleep refused to come. Adrian lay in his hotel suite, staring at the ceiling, memories clawing their way out of the darkness. The shouting, the hunger, the nights spent pretending not to hear his parents argue about money that never stretched far enough. He remembered the day he left this place with nothing but anger in his chest and a promise to never return. He had kept that promise for 25 years. Until now. The next morning, he found himself driving back without consciously deciding to. The house appeared at the end of the road like an accusation. Selena was outside this time, tending to a small garden beside the porch. She looked up when she heard the car. "You came back," she said. "I have business here," Adrian replied, though the words felt thin. She wiped her hands on her skirt. "Did you sleep well last night?" The question caught him off guard. "That's none of your concern." She studied him quietly, as if seeing something he refused to show the world. "People who want to destroy their past rarely sleep well." His jaw tightened. "Stop pretending you know me." She didn't argue. Instead, she gestured toward the porch. "Come inside. At least let me tell you why this place matters." He should have refused. He knew that. But something about the way she asked, without pleading, without fear, made it harder to walk away. Inside, the house felt different in daylight. Less oppressive. More alive. She spoke as she moved, her voice soft, measured. "I grew up nearby," Selena said. "When my parents died, I had nowhere to go. This house was abandoned, broken, but it gave me shelter when nothing else did." He scoffed. "That doesn't give you ownership." "No," she agreed. "But it gave me survival." They stopped in the living room. His eyes caught on a familiar crack in the wall, one he remembered tracing with his finger as a child. His chest tightened again. "You grew up here," Selena said suddenly. It wasn't a question. Adrian froze. "How do you know that?" he asked slowly. She met his gaze. "Some people leave pieces of themselves behind. This house remembers you." He looked away, anger flaring. "Enough. You have 3 days." She nodded, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Then I hope you listen before it's gone." As he turned to leave, a thought surfaced uninvited. What if destroying the house wouldn't erase the pain at all? Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the old windows as if the house itself were protesting. Adrian paused on the steps, glancing back once more before walking away. He didn't notice Selena watching from the doorway, whispering softly to the empty rooms. He came back, and this time, neither of them would leave unchanged. If this story is pulling you in, don't forget to subscribe to Lunar Voice Stories and stay with us till the end, because the truth behind this house is only just beginning. He didn't sleep that night. Not really. The memory of her face, calm yet unwavering, refused to leave him. Every shadow in the room seemed to whisper fragments of his childhood. He tried to tell himself he was done with the past, that success and wealth had erased every trace of that old, broken life. Yet, as he lay on the pristine hotel bed, the ceiling above him felt too low, the air too thick. He could still hear the creak of the porch, the way her voice had carried authority he had not expected. She wasn't afraid of him. No one had ever been. By morning, he found himself driving back without thinking. It was instinct, an unreasoned pull. The city faded behind him, replaced by familiar stretches of dusty road, the smell of damp earth rising as he neared the outskirts. The house appeared ahead, stubborn, indifferent to his arrival. He stopped the car, sitting for a long moment watching her move in the garden. She didn't notice him yet, and for a second he allowed himself to just look. She was alive, breathing, existing in a way the house itself seemed to protect. And for reasons he didn't want to admit, it unnerved him. He stepped out. She looked up immediately. Her eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with a calm assessment, the kind that made him feel exposed. "You came back," she said. "I have business here," he said, though the words sounded flat, almost empty even to him. "Business." Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it. "Demolition." "Yes." He kept his tone sharp. I warned you. Her lips pressed into a thin line. 3 days aren't enough to understand what this place means, she said, and he felt it like a cold hand gripping his chest. He wanted to tell her to shut up, to stop speaking in riddles, but the memory of every brick, every corner of the house, pulled at him in a way he hated. It was not supposed to matter. It was just a structure. She moved aside, gesturing toward the house. Come in. See for yourself. For a moment he hesitated. Wealth, control, and power had trained him to ignore emotions. But curiosity, dangerous and unwelcome, flickered. He stepped in. The moment he crossed the threshold, the smell of old wood and dust hit him, and he remembered. He remembered the fights, the hunger, the nights he had spent curled up in corners pretending not to hear the shouting. Every memory came rushing back like a wave. You grew up here, she said suddenly. He froze. How do you know that? His voice was sharper than he intended. Some places remember you, she said simply, and some people never really leave. He wanted to dismiss it, wanted to move to enforce the power he had built over decades. But something in her voice, soft yet unyielding, made him pause. Something told him she wasn't just a tenant. She wasn't just someone in the way of his plans. She was part of the story this house refused to let die. He left shortly after, but her words clung to him like a shadow. Driving back, the streets of the city felt alien. Money, luxury, the polished life he had built. All of it seemed distant, meaningless. For the first time in decades, he questioned what he had gained, what he had lost. The house had always been just walls, paint, and wood to the world. But to him, it was more than that. It had been his prison and his sanctuary. A place of pain that had forged him into the man who could never trust, never feel, never slow down. Until now, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she had stood, unafraid, even when he had declared his intentions. The way her gaze seemed to see through him, straight into the boy he had buried. She was a challenge in a way no one else had ever been. And challenges, he realized with an unwelcome shiver, were rare, dangerous, irresistible. The following day he returned again, this time to walk through the house. Alone, he wandered from room to room, each step awakening echoes of laughter, screams, silence. The kitchen smelled faintly of old meals. The living room held a weight of memories too stubborn to ignore, and the staircase creaked under his heavy steps, just like it had when he was a boy. Every corner spoke to him, whispered secrets of a life he had tried to outrun. And with every whisper, his resolve to demolish it wavered, though he wouldn't admit it. She appeared again, as if she had been waiting. You're back sooner than expected, she said, her tone measured, curious. He said nothing. He didn't need to. She understood, as if she had already known this struggle would come. Do you remember? She asked suddenly, stepping closer. The nights you stayed up here, thinking no one cared? The nights you tried to hide everything from the world? He stiffened. What do you know of my nights? He demanded, irritation flaring. I know enough, she replied softly. I know that destroying this house doesn't erase the past. And I know that you're not as ready as you think to leave it behind. Her words struck him harder than any memory could. She didn't just speak, they resonated. His chest tightened, a strange ache forming in a place he hadn't felt in decades. He wanted to turn away, to reclaim the control he had carefully constructed. But instead he listened, because listening hurt, and hurt had a way of opening doors he wasn't ready to walk through. I don't care about your story, he said finally, his voice low, trying to reclaim dominance. I am here to demolish, not reminisce. She didn't argue. She didn't flinch. Instead, she offered a quiet statement, almost a plea. Then I hope you at least understand before it's gone. He left again, pacing the driveway like a man wrestling with himself. The house waited silently, its windows reflecting his indecision. He hated it, hated himself, hated the fact that he was drawn back despite every logical thought telling him otherwise. And yet, somewhere deep down, he knew the story she was a part of, was not finished. Not by far. Later that night, He found himself revisiting old photographs he had kept tucked away in his office. Pictures of the house, his parents, the narrow streets, the forgotten friends. Every image was a reminder of what he had left, what he had broken, and what he had built in its place. Money, power, respect, but not peace. Not closure. Not love. And certainly not courage to face the boy he once was. The next morning, he returned once more, determined to finalize his plans. Yet the sight of her tending to the small garden made him pause. It wasn't her presence alone. It was the life she had cultivated here. Tender, resilient, living in spaces he had only seen as remnants of decay. She had made this house more than walls. She had made it breathe. "You don't have to do this," she said as he stepped out of the car. "You don't have to destroy everything you can't forget. Some things are meant to heal, not burn." His jaw tightened. That ache in his chest returned, heavier this time. Words failed him, so he simply nodded, more out of reflex than agreement. And yet, even as he turned to walk toward the house, he felt the pull of her gaze, steady, unwavering. It unsettled him in a way he couldn't name. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging a victory he wasn't aware he had lost. "Don't go yet," she whispered. Her voice carried lightly on the wind. "Not until you see it for what it really is." He froze. For the first time in decades, he hesitated at the threshold of the house, questioning the very reason he had returned. Was it control, revenge, or something else? Something deeper. Something that whispered of redemption and regret, of love lost and perhaps waiting to be found? And somewhere in the back of his mind, he realized that the story was far from over. That the house, she, and the memories locked within the walls would not allow him to walk away unchanged. Not this time. If your heart is already caught in this story, don't leave. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can follow every twist of this journey. Because what comes next will reveal secrets about the house, about him, and about the woman who refuses to let the past stay buried. The house felt different that morning. Sunlight spilled through the cracks in the walls, illuminating dust motes that danced lazily in the air. He moved slowly through the rooms, as if each step could awaken memories long buried. Every corner whispered fragments of laughter and pain, and for the first time he didn't feel in control. He felt exposed, vulnerable, the very thing he had spent decades avoiding. She appeared quietly in the doorway, carrying a basket of herbs. "I thought you might come back," she said softly. Her eyes held a calm certainty, one he couldn't challenge. "You can't help it, can you? You're drawn to this place, whether you like it or not." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he followed her gaze to the window, noticing the way sunlight highlighted the cracks in the plaster. For a moment, he allowed himself to remember the boy he once was, the boy who had dreamed of running, of leaving everything behind, of never returning. That boy had lived in these very walls, under these very beams. And now, standing here, he realized that boy was still inside him, waiting to be acknowledged. "Do you ever wonder why I'm here?" she asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the haze of his thoughts. He didn't answer. It was easier to pretend he didn't care, to mask the stirring inside him. But curiosity, dangerous and persistent, tugged at his chest. "I wasn't supposed to be alive," she continued, almost as if speaking to herself. "This house, it gave me shelter when no one else would. It kept me safe when the world turned away." He finally turned to her, meeting her gaze. Something in her expression made his throat tighten. Not fear, not anger, but a quiet strength he hadn't expected. "You survived here alone?" he asked, his voice lower than intended. She nodded. "I had no choice. But this house, it taught me resilience. It made me who I am." Her eyes flickered toward him, as if daring him to see himself reflected in her story. "And I think, maybe it can teach you too." He wanted to argue, to assert that this was still his property, his decision, his control. But the words stuck in his throat. Control was irrelevant here. The walls, the memories, and this woman had a gravity he could not deny. He walked past her, letting the silence stretch between them. Each room seemed to hum with life, each shadow carrying whispers of the past. The smell of old wood and sunlight-warmed dust was intoxicating, reminding him of nights he had hidden from his own fears, of tears he had never allowed himself to shed. "You're softening," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. He froze, his hand gripping the edge of a cracked table. "You think you've built walls around yourself, but they're only paper. You're still that boy in the corner, afraid of losing what you've always feared." He couldn't deny it, and that admission, silent though it was, shook him more than any confrontation ever could. He looked away, unwilling to meet her eyes. She moved closer, her presence gentle but firm. "I'm not trying to stop you from demolishing it," she whispered. "But maybe, just maybe, there's more here than you realize. And destroying it won't destroy the pain. Only understanding it can." For a moment, he imagined the walls falling, dust filling the air, memories scattered into nothingness. And for the first time, the idea frightened him. Not because of the loss of property or the failure of a business decision, but because destroying this house meant erasing a part of himself he wasn't ready to face. Hours passed with little more than shared silence and cautious glances. She tended to her small garden outside while he wandered the house, touching surfaces as if seeking clues, as if searching for answers he couldn't articulate. Each room revealed pieces of their intertwined existence. He realized, slowly and unwillingly, that she knew things he had long buried, about the house, about his parents, about him. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally, his voice quieter than he intended. "Because you need to hear it," she said simply. "Before you decide to erase it all. Before you choose destruction over understanding. And because—" She paused, searching his face for a reaction. "I think you're afraid of what you might find if you stay." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Her words lodged in his chest like stones, heavy and immovable. He walked to the window and stared at the garden she had nurtured, the flowers defiant and alive, and a strange warmth stirred in his chest, a feeling he hadn't recognized in years. For the first time, he saw her not as an obstacle but as a guide, a mirror, someone who reflected the parts of himself he had ignored, suppressed, or rejected. And that realization, subtle and dangerous, made him uneasy. She approached him again, standing just behind him. "Do you remember the nights you'd lie awake here, wondering if anyone cared?" she asked softly. "I saw them. I saw you." The words struck deeper than any confrontation. He wanted to push her away, to assert control, to maintain the armor he had spent decades building. But the truth, stubborn and undeniable, pressed against his chest. He had been seen. And for the first time, being seen didn't hurt. It unsettled him, yes, but it also freed him. They remained like that for a long time, the silence stretching comfortably, yet charged with tension. Finally, she spoke again, a small smile playing on her lips. "Some things don't need to be destroyed to change. Some things just need to be understood." He wanted to argue. He wanted to say that her optimism was naive, that the house was nothing but wood and memories. But the truth echoed in his mind. Maybe she was right. Maybe understanding mattered more than demolition. The day drew on, the sunlight shifting, highlighting the cracks and imperfections he had spent years avoiding. As he finally prepared to leave, she spoke one last time before he could turn away. "Wait," she said. "Before you go, I need to know, where are you watching this story unfold from?" He blinked at the question, caught off guard. She tilted her head, her smile knowing. "It's important, because everyone who hears this story has a place in it. Tell me, where are you watching from?" He didn't answer aloud, of course, but the question lingered. And in that moment, he realized that she had not only drawn him into the story of the house, but she had begun weaving him into something larger. A connection with everyone listening, watching, and waiting. "Also," she added softly, almost as if she were speaking to voices beyond the walls, "if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Lunar Voice Stories. There are many more hearts to follow, many more lives to watch unravel and intertwine." He left the house again, the weight in his chest heavier, but not unpleasantly so. Each visit now brought not only tension but understanding. She had not yielded to him, and in resisting, she had begun to awaken something he hadn't felt in years: curiosity, compassion, a dangerous inclination toward trust. That night, he found himself replaying the day's interactions in his mind. The quiet exchanges, the subtle lessons she had imparted without forcing them upon him. She was more than a challenge. She was an enigma, and enigmas demanded attention, demanded patience, demanded change. He thought about the demolition plans sitting in his office, contracts signed, permits ready. But the thought no longer excited him. Instead, it felt hollow, mechanical. He realized that destroying the house could not erase the past. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't want it to. He returned the next day, and this time he didn't bring his usual business demeanor. He walked slowly, absorbing every detail. The creak of the staircase, the smell of sun-warmed wood, the whisper of leaves outside. And she was waiting, just as steady, just as unyielding, just as alive as the day before. And in that moment, he realized that the story was no longer just about demolition. It was about healing, connection, and perhaps love. If you're feeling every heartbeat of this story, make sure to subscribe to Lunar Voice Stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this journey we're on isn't just his, it's ours too. Adrian returned the next morning earlier than usual. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and the flowers Selena had nurtured outside. He paused at the edge of the driveway, feeling a pull he couldn't name. Selena was already there, tending the garden, hands brushing against petals as if coaxing life from the soil. She looked up, smiling faintly, and Adrian felt an unexpected jolt of awareness. "You're early?" Selena said, calm yet carrying that quiet strength that always unnerved him. "I wanted to check something," Adrian replied, brushing off the flutter in his chest. "The house, the plans." Her gaze softened. "The house isn't going anywhere today. You don't have to make every decision immediately." Her words, simple though they were, struck Adrian. In them he sensed challenge, invitation, and a hint of care. That subtle care made his chest tighten, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself in decades. He wanted to reject it, push it away, but he couldn't. He walked past her, moving slowly through the hallway. The walls bore their history openly. Paint peeling, wood cracked, memories etched in every corner. He reached the living room and paused. Sunlight filtered through the broken blinds, casting lines across the floor. He could almost see himself as a boy, small, frightened, sitting in that same light, pretending the world hadn't hurt him. "You shouldn't dwell here alone," Selena said, stepping closer, voice low and gentle. "Not when it's so easy to get lost in memories." Adrian turned to her, catching her gaze. For a brief moment, words failed him. Something about her presence disarmed him completely. She wasn't just a witness to the house. She had become a part of it. And in that, she had become a part of him. "I don't need guidance," he said finally, though his tone lacked conviction. Selena tilted her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Maybe not. But even the strongest people need someone to remind them of who they were." That struck a chord Adrian wasn't ready to acknowledge. For a long time, he had believed strength meant solitude, control, and distance. But standing here, in the quiet warmth of the old house, he felt a crack in that armor forming. A dangerous crack, one that whispered possibilities he had long denied. She moved closer, gently touching a cracked picture frame on the wall. "You see this?" she asked softly. "Your mother loved this spot. She said it reminded her that even broken things could still be beautiful." Adrian swallowed, a lump forming in his throat. He hadn't thought about his mother in years. Her absence was a wound he had hidden beneath wealth and ambition. Now, standing here with Selena, listening to her speak of his past with care and understanding, he felt that wound pulse again. Not with pain, though that was there, but with longing. "You always come back here," Selena said, reading his thoughts. "Even when you tell yourself you've left it behind. Even when you plan to destroy it." Adrian wanted to argue. "This is business," he said sharply. But Selena merely looked at him, calm, unwavering, almost daring him to lie to himself. Hours passed as they moved through the house together. Selena told stories of her life here, of hardships and victories, of nights she had cried and mornings she had smiled despite it all. Each story made Adrian pause, reflect, feel. And in feeling, he began to recognize something he had suppressed for decades. Empathy, compassion, the stirrings of connection. At one point, Selena stopped him in the hallway. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a small crack in the wall. "It's imperfect, but it's still standing. Like you." He looked at the crack, then at her, and something in him shifted. For the first time, he considered that maybe demolition wasn't about erasing the past. Maybe it was about understanding, rebuilding, and acknowledging what had made him who he was. She stepped closer, her hand brushing against his unintentionally. The contact sent a shiver through him, sharp and unfamiliar. He wanted to step back, to reassert the distance he had maintained all his life. But he didn't. He allowed the warmth to linger, felt it seep into the walls he had built around himself. "You're changing," Selena said softly, a knowing smile in her eyes. "You don't even realize it yet." He didn't respond. Instead, he followed her into the kitchen, where sunlight spilled across the worn tiles. For a brief moment, everything was silent, yet full, charged with tension, possibility, and a fragile intimacy. He realized then that Selena wasn't just part of the house. She was part of him now, and that realization both terrified and thrilled him. He had spent a lifetime avoiding connection, avoiding vulnerability, and yet here she was, challenging everything he thought he knew about himself. The day wore on. She showed him corners of the house he had never noticed, small details that spoke of care, love, and resilience. Adrian watched her work, her movements deliberate, gentle, yet purposeful. And with each passing moment, the walls around his heart continued to crumble. He caught himself glancing at her more often than necessary, noticing the curve of her smile, the determined set of her jaw, the way her eyes reflected both strength and warmth. Something stirred within him, a dangerous, unfamiliar longing he wasn't ready to name. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the floor, Selena spoke again. "You've been running from this place for years, from everything it represents. But you can't run anymore. Not from the past. Not from yourself. Not from me." Adrian froze, the weight of her words pressing down on him. She wasn't accusing him. She wasn't pleading. She was stating a truth he had avoided for far too long. And in that moment, he felt the first real crack of vulnerability. He stepped closer, instinctively, chest tight. Selena didn't move away. She only watched him, calm, patient, unwavering. And for a brief, electrifying moment, the world outside the house ceased to exist. There was only the two of them, the history of the house, and the fragile, dangerous possibility of something more. "I don't know if I can," Adrian started, voice low, unsure. "You can," Selena whispered. "You've survived worse than this. Survive yourself, survive the past. You can survive the truth too." The weight of her words pressed against him. And as the evening light faded, painting the house in golden hues, he realized something terrifying and thrilling. He didn't want to demolish it anymore. Not today. Not yet. As they stepped outside, the wind stirring the leaves of the garden she had nurtured, Selena smiled softly. "You're beginning to see," she said. "And that's a start." Adrian looked at her, truly looked, and felt something stir in the depths of his chest. Something dangerous. Something he had spent decades avoiding. Something that whispered of connection, trust, and love. If you're feeling every heartbeat of this story, make sure to subscribe to Lunar Voice Stories for more billionaire romance tales. And tell us, where are you watching from? Share it in the comments so we can connect with you. Even as the night fell, the house stood silent and proud. Selena had not yielded, and Adrian had not surrendered. And in the quiet tension between them, something powerful was beginning. A connection that would challenge, change, and perhaps even heal them both. He left that night, chest heavy, mind racing, heart stirring in ways he hadn't felt in years. The demolition countdown had begun, but the stakes had shifted. This was no longer just about walls and wood. It was about understanding, emotion, and the fragile beginnings of love. And somewhere deep inside, Adrian knew he would return. Again and again, because some stories, once started, refused to end quietly. The next morning, Adrian arrived with a weight on his shoulders he couldn't quite explain. The house stood there, stubborn, holding its silence like a secret. Selena was already outside, tending to her small garden, sunlight catching her hair like fire. He hesitated at the edge of the driveway, the words he had rehearsed in the car dying before he could speak them. "You're here," Selena said softly, without turning. Her voice held that same quiet strength he had come to recognize. "Yes," Adrian said finally. I need to see something." She turned to him slowly, eyes searching his face. "What is it?" He stepped closer, taking in the way the morning light fell across her features, the determination in her stance, the warmth in her eyes. He realized that nothing in the world, money, power, success, had ever made him feel this unsettled. And yet, it was not fear he felt. It was something far more dangerous. He led her through the house, stopping at the living room. The sunlight painted long lines across the cracked floorboards. He looked at her, really looked at her, and finally let the words he had buried for decades escape. "I shouldn't have left," he whispered, voice rough with emotion. "I shouldn't have run from this, from everything." Selena's eyes softened. "You didn't run forever," she said. "You came back, and that matters." For a long moment, silence filled the room. But it wasn't heavy. It was alive, charged with unspoken truths and possibilities. Adrian swallowed, his throat tight, and took a step closer to her. "I was going to destroy it," he admitted. "The house, the memories, everything. I thought, if I erased it, I could erase myself. But I was wrong." Selena stepped closer as well, closing the small distance between them. "Some things can't be destroyed," she said. "Not houses, not memories, not the past. They can only be understood. They can only be faced." Adrian nodded, eyes fixed on her. He felt the first real crack of vulnerability, a door he had locked for decades swinging open. He didn't step away. He didn't want to. He realized he had never felt this kind of honesty, this kind of raw connection, in all his years of running from pain. "I don't know how to," he started, but words failed him. "You don't have to know," Selena whispered. "Just feel. That's enough." Her hand reached for his, and for the first time in his life, Adrian let someone in without hesitation. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like pieces of a puzzle long separated. His chest tightened, heart racing, yet calm, as if every beat knew this moment was inevitable. Outside, the wind stirred, shaking leaves across the garden, and Adrian realized he was standing in a place that had once symbolized fear and pain, now transformed into a place of possibility. Selena's presence had made it alive again, breathing with hope and courage. He took a deep breath, stepping closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Selena," she smiled, small, gentle, knowing. "Yes, Adrian? He paused, searching for words that could carry decades of regret and longing. "I don't want to destroy it. Not the house. Not us." Selena's hand tightened around his. "Then don't," she said softly. "Let it live. Let us live. Let the past be what it is, and let's see what we can build together." The air between them seemed to hum with possibility. For the first time, Adrian didn't feel the need to control, to dominate, to guard every inch of his heart. He simply felt. He felt alive, vulnerable, and seen in a way he had never been before. And then, the unthinkable happened. He leaned closer and she met him halfway. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, a spark igniting a warmth that had been absent from his life for decades. It was not rushed, not passionate in a frantic sense, but deliberate, tender, and grounding. It was a kiss that spoke of understanding, forgiveness, and a fragile, thrilling love taking root. They pulled back slightly, foreheads resting together, breath mingling. "I didn't think," Adrian murmured. "You didn't have to," Selena replied, smiling softly. "You just had to come back." The house seemed to sigh around them, the years of pain and neglect folding into a quiet acceptance. It was no longer just a building. It was a witness, a keeper of stories, and now, a cradle for new beginnings. Adrian's mind wandered briefly to the demolition plans he had brought with him. They were still in his office, contracts signed, permits ready. But they no longer mattered. The house, the memories, Selena, they were more important than paper and bureaucracy. He realized that the greatest structures weren't made of steel and concrete. They were made of connection, understanding, and love. Hours passed as they moved through the house, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments. Every corner, every crack, every faded wallpaper line held new meaning. The house was no longer a symbol of fear. It was a testament to resilience, survival, and transformation. By evening, Adrian and Selena were sitting on the porch, hands intertwined, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The air was filled with the scent of earth and flowers, soft and alive. Adrian felt a peace he hadn't known in decades. "This place," he said softly, It's not just a house anymore. It's us." Selena smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Yes, and it always will be, as long as we remember why it matters." For a long while, they sat together, letting the silence speak for them. Outside, the world continued, but here, in this space of memory and renewal, they had found each other. They had found connection, understanding, and the fragile beginnings of love. As night fell, Adrian reached for his phone. He knew there were people listening, following this journey. He spoke softly, almost as if addressing them personally. If you felt this story, make sure you subscribe to Lunar Voice Stories. Follow us for more billionaire romance tales, where hearts meet, collide, and heal. And tell us, where are you watching from? We want to know who's sharing this journey with us. Selena looked up, smiling, her eyes reflecting the stars above. Adrian brushed a strand of hair from her face, feeling the warmth, the connection, the unspoken promise between them. "This isn't the end," he whispered. "No," she replied, intertwining her fingers with his. "It's only the beginning." And so, under the starlit sky, in a house that had once been a prison of memories, Adrian Kane and Selena Hart began something new, together. They had faced the past, embraced the present, and dared to imagine a future. And in that future, the house would remain, not as a reminder of pain, but as a witness to love, resilience, and the stories that refused to end quietly.